Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez adjusted her scope for the 1,000th time that morning, her weathered hands steady despite the bitter mountain cold. The Afghan peaks stretched endlessly around their forward operating base, each ridgeline a potential hiding spot for enemy combatants. She had been leading the 82nd Airborne's elite sniper unit for 8 years, and in that time, she had seen shots that defied belief and marksmen who could thread a needle at 1,000 yards. But nothing had prepared her for the challenge that arrived with the morning briefing. Captain James Mitchell spread the reconnaissance photos across the metal table in their makeshift command tent. The images showed a heavily fortified compound nestled in a valley 3 miles away, surrounded by steep cliffs and natural barriers that made it nearly impregnable. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target, a bomb maker responsible for dozens of civilian casualties, had taken refuge there with a small army of guards. The problem, Mitchell explained, pointing to the topographical map, is the distance and angle. We're looking at a shot of over 2,800 meters with a target that will only be visible for seconds at a time. The wind patterns in that valley are unpredictable, and there's no clear line of sight from any traditional position. Rodriguez studied the terrain with the practiced eye of someone who had made impossible shots before. She traced potential firing positions with her finger, calculating angles, wind drift, and bullet drop in her head. Her team gathered around the table. Sergeant First Class David Park, her spotter for the past 4 years, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, their newest addition but already proving herself exceptional, and Corporal Jake Thompson, barely 22 but with eyes like a hawk and nerves of steel. "Ma'am," Park said quietly, "even with our best equipment, that's beyond the effective range of our weapon system. The Barrett M82 tops out around 1,800 meters for reliable accuracy. We're talking about a shot that's technically impossible." Rodriguez nodded grimly. She had made shots at extreme range before, but this was different. The target would appear only briefly each morning as he conducted his security rounds, always in the same spot for exactly 12 seconds before disappearing back into the fortified building. Intelligence suggested he would be moving locations within 48 hours, making this their only opportunity. "There's something else," Mitchell added, his voice dropping lower. "Command has received reports of a lone operative working in this region, someone who's been taking out high-value targets with precision that's, well, it's unprecedented. No unit has claimed responsibility, and no one has been able to confirm visual contact with this operative." Santos looked up from the photos. "Sir, are you saying there's a rogue sniper out there?" "Not rogue," Mitchell corrected. "Allied, apparently, but operating under such deep cover that even we don't have clearance to know who they are. The kills attributed to this operative include shots at ranges that our best marksmen say are impossible." Thompson whistled low. "How impossible are we talking?" Mitchell pulled out another folder, this one marked with multiple classification stamps. 3 weeks ago, a terrorist leader was eliminated while moving between vehicles in a convoy. The shot came from a position over 3 miles away in mountainous terrain during a windstorm. The bullet traveled through a gap between 2 buildings that was less than 3 feet wide. The tent fell silent. Even Rodriguez, who had seen remarkable feats of marksmanship throughout her career, found herself struggling to process the implications. A shot like that would require not just exceptional skill, but an almost supernatural understanding of ballistics, weather patterns, and timing. Park leaned forward, studying the intelligence photos more closely. "Ma'am, if this operative is real, maybe we should be looking for signs of their presence. If they're targeting the same individuals we are." Rodriguez considered this. The idea of an unknown sniper operating in their area of operations was both intriguing and concerning. On one hand, if this person was eliminating threats, they were technically an ally. On the other hand, the lack of coordination could lead to dangerous complications. "Our mission remains the same," she decided. "We need to neutralize the target in that compound." Whether this mysterious operative exists or not, we can't rely on them to complete our objective. She turned back to the topographical maps, her mind working through the geometric problems presented by the terrain. The compound sat in a natural bowl, protected by ridgelines on three sides. The only clear approach was from the north, but that position would require a shot across a valley where wind patterns were notoriously unpredictable. Santos had been quietly studying the satellite imagery with a magnifying glass. "Sergeant," she said suddenly, "look at this photo taken yesterday morning." She pointed to a barely visible disturbance in the snow on a distant peak. "That doesn't look natural." Rodriguez examined the spot Santos indicated. It was subtle, almost invisible, unless you knew what to look for. The snow pattern suggested someone had been in that position, someone who understood how to minimize their visual signature, but hadn't quite managed to eliminate it entirely. "That position would give a clear line of sight to the compound," Park observed, running calculations in his head. "But it's over 4 miles away. No one could make an accurate shot from there." "Unless they could," Rodriguez said thoughtfully. She had learned long ago not to dismiss possibilities just because they seemed unlikely. In her experience, the most dangerous enemies were often the ones who could do things others considered impossible. The team spent the rest of the day preparing for their mission. They cleaned and calibrated their weapons, studied the weather patterns, and rehearsed the complex choreography required for an extreme-range shot. Rodriguez paired Park with the Barrett M82, their most powerful rifle, while she took the lighter but equally precise M24 system. As evening approached, they received an updated intelligence briefing. The target had been confirmed still in position, maintaining his routine of morning security checks. Weather conditions looked favorable, with minimal wind predicted for the following dawn. Everything pointed toward this being their best and possibly only opportunity. But Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The reports of the mysterious operative nagged at her, particularly the description of impossible shots made under conditions that should have prevented any form of accurate fire. Part of her wondered if they were dealing with someone whose skills exceeded anything in their training manuals. "Ma'am," Thompson said as they prepared to move out to their firing position, "what if this ghost sniper is already planning to take the same shot?" It was a question that had been bothering Rodriguez as well. The thought of 2 separate sniper teams operating in the same area, targeting the same individual, without coordination, was a tactical nightmare. At best, it would mean wasted effort. At worst, it could compromise both missions and potentially endanger civilian lives. "We proceed as planned," she decided. "If someone else takes the shot first, we'll adapt. But we can't base our mission on maybes and ghost stories." The team gathered their equipment and began the arduous trek to their chosen firing position. The mountain terrain was treacherous in daylight, and navigating it in darkness required all their training and experience. Rodriguez led the way, following a route she had memorized from the topographical maps, while her team moved silently behind her. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew thinner and colder. Each step required careful consideration to avoid disturbing loose rocks that might give away their position. The enemy was known to have lookouts on some of the surrounding peaks, and detection would mean not just mission failure, but likely death for her entire team. 3 hours into their movement, Park held up his hand in the universal signal to freeze. The team instantly went motionless, barely breathing as they listened for whatever had caught their spotter's attention. In the distance, almost inaudible above the mountain wind, came the sound of loose gravel sliding down a rocky slope. Someone else was moving through these mountains in the darkness. Rodriguez felt her heart rate increase as she processed the implications. Either they had stumbled across an enemy patrol, or they were about to encounter the mysterious operative who had captured intelligence's attention. Either way, their mission had just become significantly more complicated. The sound came again, closer this time, and Rodriguez realized that whoever was moving through the darkness was heading toward the same general area they were. The timing was too coincidental to ignore. Someone else was planning to take a shot at their target from an elevated position, and they were going to be in position to do it before dawn. She signaled her team to take cover among the rocks and waited, every sense alert for signs of the approaching presence. Years of combat experience had taught her that patience was often the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. If this was the ghost sniper intelligence had described, she wanted to observe their methods before revealing her team's presence. What she didn't expect was that whoever was approaching was moving with a level of stealth that impressed even her experienced team. The sounds they had detected were so subtle that a less experienced unit might have dismissed them as natural mountain settling. This person, whoever they were, possessed skills that matched or exceeded anything Rodriguez had encountered in her military career. The mountain darkness held its secrets close, but dawn was approaching, and with it would come answers to questions that had been puzzling military intelligence for months. Rodriguez settled in to wait, knowing that the next few hours would either confirm or dispel the rumors about an impossible marksman operating in their area of operations. The stakes had just gotten considerably higher, and she couldn't shake the feeling that everything she thought she knew about precision shooting was about to be challenged in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The first hint of dawn painted the eastern peaks in shades of deep purple and gold. Rodriguez and her team had been in position for 2 hours, their bodies numb from the mountain cold despite their cold weather gear. They had chosen a rocky outcrop that provided both concealment and a clear view of the valley below, where the target compound sat like a dark scar against the lighter stone of the mountainside. But their attention was no longer focused solely on their mission objective. 40 minutes earlier, Park had spotted movement on a ridge approximately 800 meters to their northwest. Through his high-powered spotting scope, he had caught glimpses of what appeared to be a single figure establishing a firing position. What made this sighting remarkable was not just the presence of another sniper, but the location they had chosen. "Ma'am," Park whispered, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. "Whoever that is, they're positioned for a shot that's mathematically impossible." Rodriguez studied the distant ridge through her own optics. The position would require a bullet to travel over 4,200 meters through unpredictable mountain air, across a valley where wind patterns shifted constantly due to the surrounding terrain. Even with the most advanced equipment available to military snipers, such a shot would be beyond the realm of practical possibility. Yet someone was clearly preparing to attempt it. Santos had been monitoring their radio frequencies, listening for any communication that might indicate the presence of other Allied forces in the area. "Nothing on any of our channels," she reported quietly. "Whoever that is, they're operating completely dark." Thompson, who had been assigned to watch for enemy movement around the compound, suddenly tensed. "Movement at the target building," he announced. "2 figures on the roof conducting their morning security sweep." Rodriguez shifted her focus back to their primary mission. Through her rifle scope, she could see armed guards moving across the flat rooftop of the main building. Intelligence had indicated that their target would appear shortly to conduct his personal inspection of the perimeter, a routine he had followed religiously for the past 3 weeks. The challenge facing her team was immense. Even from their carefully chosen position, the shot would be at the extreme limit of their weapons' capability. Wind conditions in the valley were already shifting as the morning air began to warm, creating cross-currents that would affect bullet trajectory. A successful shot would require perfect timing, precise calculations, and a considerable amount of luck. "Range to target, 2,847 meters, Park called out, having taken multiple measurements with their laser rangefinder. "Wind speed variable, currently reading 8 knots from the southwest, but shifting. Temperature 42 degrees and rising." Rodriguez made minute adjustments to her scope, compensating for the distance, elevation difference, and atmospheric conditions. The mathematics of extreme long-range shooting were complex under ideal conditions, but the mountain environment added variables that even experienced snipers struggled to predict accurately. She was in the middle of her final calculations when Park's voice cut through her concentration. "Ma'am, the figure on the northwest ridge just chambered around." Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. If the unknown sniper was preparing to fire, it meant they believed they could successfully engage a target at a range that defied conventional understanding of ballistics. Either this person was delusional, or they possessed capabilities that exceeded anything in standard military training. Santos was monitoring the compound through her own optics when she spotted the target. "There," she said urgently. "Main building, third floor balcony. Male figure conducting visual inspection of the perimeter." Rodriguez acquired the target through her scope. The man was exactly as described in their intelligence briefings. Medium height, dark beard, wearing the distinctive white traditional clothing that marked him as the bomb maker they had been tasked to eliminate. He was moving slowly along the balcony, pausing periodically to examine different sections of the compound's defenses. According to their intelligence, he would be visible for approximately 12 seconds before returning to the safety of the building's interior. The window for engagement was narrow, and the consequences of missing were severe. A failed shot would alert the entire compound to their presence and likely result in the target going into permanent hiding. "Wind holding steady at 7 knots, Park reported. "Range confirmed at 2,147 meters. You have a clear shot." Rodriguez took a deep breath, feeling the familiar calm that settled over her before a difficult engagement. Her finger found the trigger, and she began the slow, steady squeeze that would send a .338 caliber bullet across nearly 3 miles of mountain air toward its target. She was halfway through her trigger pull when the impossible happened. A sound like distant thunder rolled across the valley, the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle firing. But the sound didn't come from Rodriguez's position, nor from any of her team's weapons. It came from the northwest ridge, from the position they had been monitoring. "Jesus Christ," Thompson breathed, watching through his binoculars as the target suddenly jerked backward, a red mist appearing where his chest had been a moment before. The man crumpled to the balcony floor, clearly dead before he hit the ground. Rodriguez stared through her scope in complete disbelief. Someone had just made a successful shot at a range of over 4,200 meters through shifting wind patterns at a target that had been visible for less than 3 seconds. The shot had been so precise that the bullet had struck center mass, eliminating the target instantly. Park was frantically adjusting his spotting scope, trying to get a clear view of the ridge where the shot had originated. "I can't see anyone," he reported. "Whoever fired that shot is already moving." The compound below erupted into chaos as guards discovered their fallen leader. Men with assault rifles poured out of buildings, shouting orders and scanning the surrounding mountains for threats. But Rodriguez noticed something significant. They were looking in the wrong direction. The guards were focusing their attention on the eastern ridges, the most obvious positions for a sniper attack. None of them were even considering that the shot could have come from the northwest. Santos was still monitoring radio frequencies when she picked up excited chatter in the local dialect. "They're calling for medical assistance," she translated, "and they're requesting immediate evacuation for what they're calling a ghost attack." Rodriguez lowered her rifle, her mind struggling to process what she had just witnessed. Everything she understood about long-range shooting suggested that the shot she had just observed was impossible. The distance alone should have made accurate fire impractical, but when combined with the environmental conditions and the brief target exposure, it moved into the realm of the supernatural. "Ma'am," Park said quietly, "I've been calculating the ballistics for a shot from that position. Even with the most advanced ammunition available, the bullet drop alone would be over 40 feet. The shooter would have had to aim at a point in empty sky, and trust that the bullet would arc down to hit a target the size of a dinner plate. Thompson was still watching the compound through his binoculars. "They're moving the body inside," he reported. "Looks like they're preparing for immediate evacuation. Whatever security they had is broken." Rodriguez realized that their mission had been completed, but not by them. Someone with capabilities that exceeded anything in their training manuals had eliminated their target with a single shot that defied explanation. The mystery sniper that intelligence had been tracking was real, and their skills were beyond anything she had encountered in 2 decades of military service. "Pack it up," she ordered. "We need to move before those guards start expanding their search pattern." As her team began breaking down their equipment, Rodriguez couldn't stop thinking about the implications of what she had witnessed. If there really was an operative capable of making shots at such extreme ranges, it changed everything about how they understood the limitations of sniper warfare. Traditional concepts of safe distance and protective cover became meaningless when facing someone who could accurately engage targets from positions that should be tactically irrelevant. The team began their withdrawal, moving carefully through the rocky terrain to avoid detection. But Rodriguez found herself glancing repeatedly toward the northwest ridge, where the impossible shot had originated. Every instinct told her that understanding this mystery was crucial, not just for satisfying her curiosity, but for the safety of future operations in the region. Park was monitoring enemy radio traffic through their scanner as they moved. "Compound is going into full lockdown," he reported. "They're calling in additional security and requesting helicopter extraction for the remaining leadership." The response from the enemy confirmed what Rodriguez had suspected. The psychological impact of the impossible shot was as significant as the tactical result. When an enemy couldn't understand how they were being attacked, it created a level of fear and uncertainty that went far beyond the simple elimination of a single target. As they descended toward their extraction point, Santos voiced the question that was troubling all of them. "Ma'am, how do we report this? Command is going to want details about mission completion, but how do we explain that someone else took the shot from a position that should have been useless?" It was a fair question, and one that Rodriguez had been considering as they moved. The official mission report would need to document the elimination of their target, but explaining the circumstances would require admitting that there was an unknown operative in their area of operations with capabilities that exceeded their understanding. "We report what we observed," she decided. "Intelligence needs to know that their reports about this ghost sniper are accurate. More importantly, they need to understand that whoever this person is, they're operating at a level that changes the tactical situation in this entire region." The mountain trail wound downward through increasingly dense vegetation as they approached lower elevations. The morning sun was now fully visible, warming the air and creating the kind of thermal currents that would have made Rodriguez's planned shot even more difficult than it already was. Whoever had taken that impossible shot had done so under conditions that were challenging even for conventional engagements. Thompson paused on a rocky outcrop that provided a clear view back toward the ridge where the mysterious shooter had been positioned. "Movement!" he called out, raising his binoculars. "Someone's coming down from that position." Rodriguez immediately signaled for her team to take cover. If the unknown sniper was moving through the same general area, there was a possibility of contact. While this person appeared to be allied based on their target selection, the lack of coordination made any interaction potentially dangerous. Through her own optics, Rodriguez caught a glimpse of a figure moving with practiced stealth down a trail that paralleled their own route. The person was carrying what appeared to be a custom rifle system and moving with the kind of tactical awareness that suggested extensive training and experience. "Range approximately 600 meters, Park whispered. "Single individual, armed with what looks like a heavily modified sniper rifle. Moving with military precision." Rodriguez watched the figure navigate the difficult terrain with impressive skill. Whoever this was clearly understood mountain warfare and possessed the physical conditioning necessary for extended operations at high altitude. But what struck her most was the confidence of their movement. This person showed no signs of concern about potential enemy presence, as if they were completely comfortable operating alone in hostile territory. As the figure moved closer to a position where Rodriguez might be able to observe them more clearly, they suddenly stopped and seemed to look directly toward her team's concealed position. For a moment, Rodriguez felt as if she was being studied by someone who knew exactly where she was, despite their careful camouflage. Then, in a move that surprised everyone, the figure raised one hand in what appeared to be a casual wave before disappearing into a fold in the terrain that would take them out of visual range entirely. "Did that just happen?" Santos asked, voicing what they were all thinking. Rodriguez lowered her binoculars, feeling a mixture of professional respect and deep curiosity. Whoever had just acknowledged their presence possessed not just exceptional marksmanship skills, but tactical awareness that allowed them to detect a concealed sniper team that had been trained to remain invisible. The implications were troubling and fascinating in equal measure. As her team continued their withdrawal toward the extraction point, Rodriguez knew that she would be spending considerable time trying to understand what they had witnessed and what it meant for future operations in the region. 3 days after the impossible shot, Rodriguez found herself in a secure briefing room at Bagram Airfield, facing a collection of intelligence officers who seemed as puzzled as she was. The after-action report she had submitted had triggered a flurry of activity that reached all the way to Pentagon-level intelligence analysis. Colonel Sarah Chen, the senior intelligence officer for their sector, spread a series of satellite photographs across the conference table. Each image showed the aftermath of precision strikes that had eliminated high-value targets throughout the region over the past 2 months. The pattern was unmistakable. Shots taken from positions and ranges that conventional military doctrine considered impossible. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez," Colonel Chen began, "your report describes a shot from over 4,200 meters that eliminated your assigned target. Our ballistics experts have run the numbers repeatedly, and they all reach the same conclusion. The shot you describe cannot be made with any known weapons system and ammunition combination." Rodriguez had expected this response. She had run the same calculations herself during their extraction flight, trying to understand how someone had accomplished what she had witnessed. Every mathematical model suggested that a bullet fired from that distance would have insufficient velocity and accuracy to hit such a precise target. "Ma'am," Rodriguez replied carefully, "I understand the ballistics challenges. I've been making extreme-range shots for over a decade, and what I observed shouldn't be possible. But I had 3 witnesses, and the target is definitely dead." Chen nodded and pulled out another folder, this one marked with even higher security classifications. "That's not the only impossible shot we're dealing with. 2 weeks ago, a terrorist cell leader was eliminated while traveling in an armored vehicle convoy. The shot came from a position over 3 miles away during a sandstorm and penetrated the vehicle's armor to kill the target without harming the driver sitting 18 inches away." Park, who had been silent during most of the briefing, leaned forward. "Colonel, that level of precision would require not just exceptional marksmanship, but advanced knowledge of the vehicle's armor configuration and the exact seating arrangement of the occupants." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "Which brings us to our current problem. Either we're dealing with an individual whose capabilities exceed anything in our training databases, or we're looking at technology that we don't understand." She activated a large display screen that showed a detailed topographical map of their operational area. Red markers indicated the locations where impossible shots had been recorded, creating a pattern that covered hundreds of square miles of mountainous terrain. "The strikes are too precise and too well-informed to be random," Chen continued. "Someone is conducting a systematic elimination campaign against terrorist leadership throughout this region." The targets are all legitimate, the intelligence is perfect, and the execution is flawless. But the methods are beyond our current understanding. Santos studied the map carefully. Ma'am, the positions chosen for these shots all have one thing in common. They're locations where a traditional sniper would never even consider setting up. They're too far away, the angles are wrong, and the environmental conditions should make accurate fire impossible. Rodriguez had noticed the same pattern. Each marked location represented a position that would be dismissed by conventional military planning as tactically useless. Yet someone was using these seemingly impossible positions to eliminate targets with precision that suggested complete confidence in their abilities. "There's something else," Chen said, pulling up a series of forensic photographs. The ballistics evidence from each strike shows bullet impact patterns that are consistent with perfect center mass hits. No near misses, no adjustment shots, no evidence of ranging fire. Each target was killed with a single shot placed with surgical precision. Thompson whistled softly. That's not just exceptional marksmanship, that's superhuman consistency. Even the best snipers in the world miss occasionally, especially at extreme range. Colonel Chen fixed Rodriguez with a direct stare. "Master Sergeant, I need your professional assessment. Based on what you observed, are we dealing with an individual using conventional weapons and exceptional skill, or are we looking at some form of advanced technology?" It was the question Rodriguez had been wrestling with since witnessing the impossible shot. Everything about the incident suggested human agency. The careful positioning, the tactical awareness, the target selection. But the execution exceeded anything that should be possible with known weapons and ammunition. "Colonel," Rodriguez said slowly, "the person I observed moved like a trained operator. They understood terrain, they maintained operational security, and they demonstrated tactical awareness that indicated extensive experience. But the shot itself, I can't explain how it was physically possible." Chen nodded and opened another file. "We've been investigating reports of a potential new weapon system being tested in remote areas, something that would extend the effective range of precision fire beyond current limitations. But our technical intelligence suggests that such a system doesn't exist in any known military inventory." Park had been studying the ballistics data from their encounter. "Ma'am, I've been thinking about atmospheric conditions during our mission. The air was cold and dense, which would actually improve bullet performance. But even accounting for optimal conditions, the shot we observed required compensation for gravitational drop, wind drift, and atmospheric pressure variations that would challenge even computer-guided systems." The briefing room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. If the mystery sniper was using conventional equipment, their understanding of ballistics and atmospheric physics was beyond anything taught in military schools. If they were using advanced technology, it represented a capability gap that could fundamentally alter the nature of asymmetric warfare. Rodriguez found herself thinking about the casual wave the mysterious figure had given them during their withdrawal. It had seemed almost friendly, as if acknowledging fellow professionals rather than potential threats. That gesture suggested confidence and tactical awareness that indicated extensive training and experience in special operations. "Colonel," she said thoughtfully, "the individual we observed didn't behave like someone testing experimental equipment. They moved and operated like someone who was completely comfortable with their capabilities. If this is new technology, they've had enough time to master it completely." Chen considered this observation. "That suggests either a long-term testing program that's been kept off our intelligence radar, or an individual who's developed these capabilities through unconventional means." The discussion was interrupted by an aide who entered with an urgent message. Colonel Chen read the brief communication, and her expression shifted from puzzlement to surprise. "We just received communication through diplomatic channels," she announced. "Someone wants to arrange a meeting." Rodriguez felt her pulse quicken. "A meeting with whom?" "Ma'am?" "The message was very brief," Chen replied. It simply stated that the person responsible for recent precision strikes in this region would like to coordinate with our forces to prevent operational conflicts. They've provided specific coordinates for a meeting location and suggested that you and your team attend as representatives. The implications of this development were staggering. Not only was the mystery sniper real and operating in their area, but they were apparently willing to reveal themselves and discuss coordination. Either this was an unprecedented opportunity to solve the puzzle that had been troubling intelligence analysts, or it was a trap designed to eliminate the witnesses to impossible marksmanship. Santos voiced the concern that was troubling everyone. "Colonel, this could be an ambush. Someone who can make impossible shots from extreme range could easily eliminate a small team at close quarters." Chen had clearly considered this possibility. "The meeting location is in neutral territory, away from known enemy positions. We'll have Overwatch support and extraction protocols in place, but the potential intelligence value makes this worth the risk." Rodriguez studied the coordinates that had been provided. The meeting location was at a mountain lake approximately 20 miles from their current position, in an area that offered good visibility and multiple escape routes. If someone wanted to demonstrate peaceful intentions, it was a reasonable choice. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "my team and I volunteer for this mission. We've already observed this individual's capabilities, and we're the most qualified to assess whether they represent an opportunity or a threat." The next morning found Rodriguez and her team approaching the designated meeting coordinates with a mixture of professional curiosity and tactical caution. They had spent hours planning their approach, establishing Overwatch positions, and coordinating with supporting elements that would remain at a distance unless needed. The mountain lake was exactly as described in their topographical maps, a pristine body of water surrounded by rocky slopes that provided excellent observation points. As they approached the designated location, Rodriguez scanned the area through her rifle scope, looking for any signs of ambush or deception. What she found instead was a single figure sitting calmly beside the lake, apparently unarmed and making no effort to conceal their presence. Even at a distance, Rodriguez could see that this person was relaxed and confident, showing no signs of concern about meeting with an armed military unit. As her team moved closer, details became clear that surprised them all. The mysterious sniper who had been the subject of intense intelligence speculation was a woman, probably in her early 30s, with dark hair and the kind of weathered features that suggested extensive time in harsh environments. She was sitting cross-legged beside a small camp stove, apparently brewing tea as if this were a casual social meeting rather than a potentially dangerous encounter between military units. Her rifle, which was indeed heavily modified from any standard military configuration, lay beside her within easy reach but clearly not in a threatening position. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez," the woman called out when they were still 50 meters away, "thank you for accepting my invitation. Please bring your team closer. I think we have a great deal to discuss." Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. This person knew her name and rank, which meant they had access to intelligence that should have been classified. Either they had connections to military databases, or they had been conducting surveillance that her team had never detected. As they approached the final meeting point, Rodriguez found herself face-to-face with someone whose casual demeanor masked capabilities that defied conventional understanding. The woman gestured toward several flat rocks arranged around her position, clearly intended as seating for the impromptu conference. "Please, sit down," the woman said with a slight accent that Rodriguez couldn't immediately identify. "I believe you have questions about recent events, and I have information that might be useful for future operations in this region." Rodriguez settled onto one of the rocks, keeping her weapon ready but not obviously threatening. This close, she could see that the woman's eyes held the kind of calm focus that marked experienced combat veterans. Whatever her background, this person was clearly comfortable with violence and confident in dangerous situations. "You made an impossible shot 3 days ago," Rodriguez said directly. I'd like to understand how. The woman smiled slightly, as if she had expected this question. Master Sergeant, what would you say if I told you that impossible is simply a limitation of current understanding rather than an absolute boundary? It was an answer that raised more questions than it resolved, but Rodriguez found herself intrigued rather than frustrated. She had the feeling that the next few minutes would either provide answers to questions that had been puzzling military intelligence for months, or reveal new mysteries that would challenge everything she thought she understood about the art of precision shooting. The mountain lake reflected the clear morning sky like a mirror, creating a peaceful setting for a conversation that would fundamentally alter Rodriguez's understanding of what was possible in the deadly profession she had devoted her life to mastering.